Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker and company.
Hi kids, welcome to The Fight. Great to have you with us. That's Andrew Rogers, I'm Randy Carricker, and we've got quite a show. How was your weekend? I guess you were a little awake, huh?
Yeah, it was up and down.
You've got a baby.
Yeah, and she was up more than she was down.
Coming up, the Cardinals lose a potential Brendan Donovan trade partner. Are the Blues having bad injury luck? And we've got story time with Uncle Randy, but let's get things started with our quick hits. And the Billikens are off to Davidson tomorrow night after annihilating Dayton over the weekend. SLU played walk-ons with 3 minutes left and the margin in the mid-30s for much of the game. But Coach Josh Schertz says his success at SLU will take longer to achieve.
There's a difference in making an appearance and having an arrival. You know, we've made appearances at St. Louis. We've had blips and runs of 1 or 2 or 3 years. What makes Dayton, VCU, Gonzaga, as they do it year over year over year. So that's the key, is the sustainable success and being able to have consistency of high-level performance over an extended period of time. That's the ultimate to me in terms of how you would, for success of any person.
What a great philosophy. I love the fact that they won the game. I love the fact that we were so excited about the win. But he says, yeah, we've got to do it over the course of time. We can't beat VCU and Dayton once. We've got to beat them regularly.
And I'm trying to figure out if Dayton isn't as good as we thought they were, or if SLU is just that much better than everybody else in the conference. Because this was a game where SLU shot 60% from the field. You're not going to lose many games like that. But I think both things can be true. I think Dayton isn't as good as we thought they were, but I also think SLU is by far the best team in this conference. Dayton has a really good defense. If you look at anything else analytically, they have a really good defense. Not a good offense, but a good defense. And if SLU can put up 100 points on that team, that just goes back to good preparation, good coaching, and just good overall gameplay. And that's what Schertz brings to the table. He looks like every great coach that has come through this SLU basketball program.
The sale of the NFL Network to ESPN closed on Saturday. One thing we've heard about NFL Network over the years is that behind closed doors, the credo was always protect the shield. They never report real negative news there, and that's reasonable because the NFL has owned it as a mouthpiece. But with the NFL now owning 10% of ESPN in this deal, it seems like that protect the shield ideology could seep into ESPN's reporting, not taking anything away from people like Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham, who are sensational reporters. But I wonder if to protect the shield and protect your job, if you have to go a little bit softer on NFL owners than ESPN has gone in the past.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. ESPN, they were typically breaking stories like Deflategate and Spygate, things like that. And now when you kind of have this seeping that you're talking about, you wonder about the integrity of investigative reporting and how deep you want to go in these situations. I still think, because we see it today, that there's already going to be investigative reporting out there because there's always somebody that wants that next job. Like a young kid is going to come into a facility and try to just lay his life on the line so that he can get the big time job. We'll still get investigative reporting, but those big heads that you're talking about, the ones that have been there, done that before, you almost wonder if they're going to pump the brakes a little bit when it comes to dealing with that personnel.
One thing we've learned from the National Football League, never trust them. Never trust them, right? So if a story breaks on The Athletic and for whatever reason ESPN doesn't have it, I think ESPN is going to be under suspicion because somebody in the NFL, whether it's Goodell or Jerry Jones or another owner, is going to say, we don't want that out there on our network. I have a feeling that'll happen.
ESPN will be second or third in most of these stories, right? They'll be first when it comes to celebrating themselves, when they want to look like a supermodel on paper, but when it comes to maybe something that's wrong within the system, they might be the 4th or 5th team to break that story.
Well, the Blues got Pius Suter back from injury over the weekend, and Jordan Kyrou seems to be okay. The injury bug has bitten the Blues all year. After going pretty much unscathed last season, Suter just missed 17 games. Jimmy Snuggerud and Robert Thomas each have missed 12, with Thomas undergoing minor leg surgery on Saturday. They'll knock him out until after the Olympics. Dylan Holloway is still on the shelf. The Blues have lost 146 man games to injury, and only Braden Shen and Pavel Buchnevich, among the opening night top 9 forwards, haven't missed significant time. That's part of the problem for the Blues. Obviously, trying hard. Effort is a part of it, right? compete level, as coaches call it. Bad goaltending is part of it. But when you don't have your players, at least the players you expect to have, you aren't going to be as good.
That's the reason the Blues have not strung together wins. Because they have had zero time to gel with their current line mates. You go into the season, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to play next to Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. But then if one of those guys gets injured and you replace Jordan Kyrou with Jake Neighbors, all of a sudden it's like, okay, how am I gelling with this new set of three? And so forth down the list. Now I'm injured. Okay, when do I come back? Oh, now I'm on the third line. That's how the Blues have operated this season. So I'm a big believer in the fact that we haven't seen a winning streak because this team has had no time to gel with one another. And then you mentioned bad goaltending. If Binnington wins at least half of the games or looks half as good as he did last season, I bet the Blues are in the playoff hunt and probably 1 point out of the wild card.
Yeah. There's a reason that Robbie Fabry wasn't on one of the 32 teams. There's a reason that Jonathan Berggren was put on waivers by the Detroit Red Wings. There's a reason that a guy like Cam Fowler, who last year was a terrific Blue, got traded for a low pick by the Anaheim Ducks. It's because they aren't elite players. They're good. They're serviceable. They're NHL players, but they aren't guys that are going to help you win a Stanley Cup. And I think that's just where the Blues are right now, plus underperformance. When you have Fowler, when you have Parayko underperforming like they have, there's a lot of issues with this hockey team. The Cardinals lost one of the potential suitors for Brendan Donovan over the weekend when the Giants signed Luis Arraez to play second base. Arraez is 28 and led his league in hitting 3 different times with 3 different teams. He moves around because he's not so great at fielding. Anyway, the point here is that if someone would overpay for Donovan, it doesn't look like that's going to happen before spring training starts next week, because the only team now that we've heard about that has interest in Donovan, that has an opening still, is the Seattle Mariners. And they have 3 guys. If I'm Seattle, I'm going to take a look at my young players before I make a move for Donovan. And the Cardinals, again, they are going to have somebody overpay. The Cardinals are not going to take pennies on the dollar or even 90 cents on the dollar for Brendan Donovan. They want $1.25 on the dollar for him.
Yeah, Jerry Dipoto, the man in charge out in Seattle, did talk at their FanFest event and say there is a deal that they like right now that they're still trying to get done. You'd have to think that they've been in deep conversations with Chaim Bloom about Brendan Donovan. That's what's been linked for so long, and I would still pay attention to that as we go through the month of February. But aside from that, I look at Luis Arraez, and I just think what a steal that was for the Giants. He is on the Giants for only a year, but for $12 million. The Cardinals paid Dustin May, $12.5 million to pitch for them this season. And I think Arraez is the better player, and it's not apples to apples in this case, but when you're talking about a 3-time batting champ and a guy that just had 1 good season and is looking to make his name back in the league, you would probably take Luis Arraez most of the time. What a steal job by San Francisco.
Problem with Arraez is that he's essentially a one-tool player. If players hit for power, run, field, and throw, well, he can hit, doesn't hit for power, doesn't run, doesn't field, doesn't throw. And I think that's what a lot of executives worry about with him, especially when to win you have to have good defense up the middle, and he just does not play defense. Apparently, as they're saying in San Francisco, Ron Washington is one of their coaches now. This will be the biggest challenge of his career.
Yeah, and it might be, but I just love the fact that you can just slot a 316 hitter into your lineup and say you can hit first, you can hit third, you can hit fifth, and you're going to drive in runs.
Yeah, I think they'd probably rather have him as a DH, but second base is where he wanted to play, and that's where he's going to play. With the Super Bowl next Sunday, just 2 of the 10 teams that had coaching openings at the end of the season, the Cardinals and Raiders, had jobs open heading into yesterday. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that after both teams interviewed Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak on Saturday, he chose the Raiders. And the Cardinals landed on Mike LaFleur, the brother of Packers coach Matt, who was the Rams offensive coordinator. But since they were last, that leaves, ta-da, the Cardinals as the least desirable head coaching job in the NFL.
I'll tell you what, though, I think LaFleur was a great hire for Arizona, because if you look at the past 4 drafts, 3 of the first round picked or the first guy taken by the Cardinals in those drafts were offensive players. I think you need another offensive mind in Arizona, and you can point to Cliff Kingsbury and say it just didn't work with that guy. But they went defensive coordinator with Jonathan Gannon. If you want Vance Joseph, he was a defensive-minded guy too. I really believe that LaFleur is best case scenario for what that offense has in Arizona.
You need to have charisma, you need to have leadership ability, and you have to have somebody let you do what you need to do in Arizona. And I think they will in Vegas now because of Tom Brady. I still don't think the Cardinals have it figured out. Hey, later in the show, you can participate in some risky business. All you need to do is check us out at the end of the show. We'll give you a parlay, and you can put it on DraftKings, and we want you to participate. Next up, we've got our weekend highlights here in The Fight. Time now for our takes on the weekend in the sports world. Baseball, we mentioned that the Giants signed Luis Arraez. With spring training a week away, there's still a couple of starting pitchers out there. Framber Valdez, formerly of Houston, and former Cardinal farmhand Zach Gallen, who was with Arizona. Another name on that list, by the way, Justin Verlander, who is being discussed by Baltimore as filling in the final spot in their starting rotation.
Yeah, and I'll start with Valdez here. The first thing that I'm paying attention to, well, with him and Gallen, is both are Scott Boras clients. So he's going to try to get the longest contract for the most money. And with Valdez, it's interesting because let's not forget last season, he purposely threw at his catcher in frustration. And those behavior issues really started to spiral for him because he didn't really seem to care when he did it. So there's teams out there that are looking at that saying, do I really want that within my organization, within our clubhouse? And if we do want that, we don't want it for 7 or 10 years. We only want it for 3 or 4.
And I think the question would be, here's a guy that's pitched for world championship teams. He's been a top 5 Cy Young Award vote getter multiple times. Are you going to look at one pitch and say, okay, that defines the guy, or are you going to look at the body of work, the 6 or 7 years that he's pitched in the major leagues with high quality, and say, okay, we're going to just throw all that out the window because of one pitch that the guy made that hit his catcher in the chest? I think I'd be inclined to take the quality of the pitcher.
Well, and you can definitely make the case for that, and I'm totally for that. I'm thinking more about the length of the contract here because you wonder, he's 31 years old. He didn't have a bad season last year, but he didn't have the season he did just 2 years ago. And if he's going to stay around that 330 mark and get you 13 wins, like that's great. But how much money are you willing to pay for that? How long are you willing to stay tied up to a guy like that?
It depends on what team I am, how much money I have to spend.
If you're the Dodgers.
Right? If you're the Dodgers, yeah, you can sign him. And then Zach Gallen, he's another guy that has been in the top 10 in Cy Young voting 3 different times, and he's got good stuff. He bounced back in the second half last year. He's been connected to the Cubs, although they're loaded with starting pitching now. I can't imagine that there is a good team out there that can't use a guy like Zach Gallen. You think the Detroit Tigers couldn't use a guy like Gallen on their staff? There's a lot of teams that could utilize his talents.
And he's going to be much cheaper than Valdez. Like you're going to start with what Framber is able to get, and then it's going to say, okay, how do we pivot to Zach Gallen? And you're not going to have to spend as much money for a guy that I think is much better upstairs than Valdez, 1. And 2, he's also a guy that pitches at a Cy Young caliber level, yet we don't appreciate Zach Gallen like we should in baseball.
We thought all along, speaking of Gallen, that the Diamondbacks, would bring Paul Goldschmidt home for a last hurrah, but John Heyman reports in the New York Post that there's mutual interest between Goldie and the Yankees on a return there in more of a platoon role. I think it'd be so great to have him return to Arizona, be with Nolan Arenado. If he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, he's going in with a Diamondbacks cap. I just think that he's the fit there. They don't have a first baseman in Arizona. I don't know why he hasn't signed already.
I think it boils down to, you look at Arizona and you say, yes, like the nostalgic piece there is why I want him there as well. Fit-wise, too, he just makes sense back in Arizona. But you have a better chance to win a World Series if you're with the Yankees. And I think that's still pulling at Paul Goldschmidt's heartstrings of, man, I'm 38 years old. All I want to do is win one. So if you want a good chance to do it, you have to go back to New York.
And he'd be a right-handed DH and first baseman against left-handed pitching. That would be his role. NFL, the Seahawks and Patriots have arrived in Santa Clara and will have their media responsibilities primarily tonight and tomorrow. Seattle remains a 4.5-point favorite with a DraftKings over-under of 45.5. Patriots quarterback Drake May didn't practice Friday because of illness and a shoulder injury. The Patriots backup quarterback is Joshua Dobbs. And then Tommy DeVito, formerly of Illinois, and the New York Giants. They better get Drake May healthy for the Super Bowl.
I would have to guess that Drake May would play through the flu like Michael Jordan did in the NBA Finals in order to play in this game. Drake May would play in a wheelchair. He'd be Kenny Yamaguchi out there if that's what it costs to win, or at least have a chance at winning a Super Bowl this season. It's a good chance for the Patriots to do so. I love that. And, just in general, I just don't think anybody else starts other than him and Darnold in this game.
That's right. Yeah, they'd rather have Tom Brady starting than Tommy
that's a good
DeVito
point.
or Joshua Dobbs.
I would guess I'd pull him out of retirement. Maybe go back and get Phillip Rivers again.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, SLU and Mizzou and Illinois in the rankings. In the net rankings, Illinois is 8th, SLU is 16th, and Mizzou is 72nd. In the KenPom rankings, Illinois is number 6, SLU is number 24, and Mizzou is number 61. Illinois won at number 5 Nebraska yesterday, by the way, 78-69. Congratulations to the Illini, and now 2 losses for the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, that's a huge win for Illinois, especially after blowing their lead at home against Nebraska earlier this season. So for the fact of going on the road now and doing it to Nebraska, that just goes to show how good this Illinois team is. And then, you just look across the board. We talked about SLU already, but we'll mention it again. You said VCU is that team that you're kind of using as that measuring stick, right? Josh Schertz is using their program as a measuring stick. Look at what George Mason's doing this year, too. That's a game to keep an eye on. Circle on the calendar. Last game of the season for SLU. They're a really good basketball team.
And they're the closest team to SLU in the net rankings. SLU, as we mentioned, in the teens, and George Mason is in the 60s. They're like 37 spots behind St. Louis U in the net ranking. So a good team, certainly dangerous for St. Louis University, but heading into the tournament, you mentioned it's the last game of the regular season, you might want to just put your stamp on that one.
Yeah.
All right, college hockey at Michigan State. Michigan State actually played at Penn State's Beaver Stadium before an announced crowd of 74,575 this weekend. And here, let's listen to this guy, this reporter for the Big Ten Network. He's great.
Otherwise, it's the end of the game. Sometimes the family dog runs away with the puck. Send it down to Mike Grinelli.
Here we go.
Guys, we're here in the roar zone here at Beaver Stadium. 60,000 fans. This guy's been tailgating since 6 a.m. He can't find his wife. He's been here all day. This is unbelievable. The best student section in the country. Let's go. Let's go.
Oh, by the way.
Guys, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving. I'm staying forever.
He scored at the same time.
Yeah, that's presumptive number 1 pick Gavin McKenna of Penn State scoring. He had a goal and 2 assists, but I'm never leaving, and this guy can't find his wife. Michigan State won the game in overtime 5-4.
I'm struggling to find out, or I'm struggling to figure out, I guess I should say, is this guy actually employed by the Big Ten Network, or was this just a random fan they handed the mic to?
That is the Big Ten Network sideline guy.
I love it. Way to integrate yourself with that fan base.
Awesome.
That was incredible. And yes, Gavin McKenna, if you watch that game, if you didn't get to watch that game, go back and watch the highlights. This is a guy that's just better than everybody else. When he's out there on the ice, he is a big-time player, he performs in the big-time moment. He's by far the number 1 pick. I know a lot of people like Stenberg's brother, and also in St. Louis, we could have both Stenbergs, right? That'd be awesome. But if you have the number 1 pick and you're the St. Louis Blues, you're taking Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, I think you probably are. Golf, Justin Rose ran away with the win at the Farmers Insurance Open in San Diego. Tony Finau tied for 11th at 12 under. Keegan Bradley tied for 43rd at -6. Brooks Koepka in his return tied for 56th at -4. Xander Schauffele missed the cut, but there is Justin Rose with the win, and it wasn't even close. He led wire to wire. It's only the second time in his career, and he said there's a lot of stress in winning wire to wire, but it wasn't even close down the stretch.
Yeah, it must feel pretty easy when you have, like a 7-stroke lead going into Sunday. Justin Rose is always the guy I used to say he would blow it on Sunday. And there's a lot of examples of him blowing a lead on Sunday, but there was no way he was blowing that big of a gap. He did such a tremendous job at just playing his game, and then he was chasing records, right? He ended up setting the record at Torrey Pines, and that's really good to see. He's like Matt Stafford, a 45-year-old that's just playing out of his mind right now.
Yeah. And by the way, Koepka apparently went out and practiced putting for 4 hours on Saturday. Maybe he overdid it a little bit, but at the Waste Management Open this week in Scottsdale, you've got Koepka and then you've got Scotty Scheffler back. Should be a fun tournament on Super Bowl weekend. Tennis, Carlos Alcaraz is the youngest man to ever complete a career Grand Slam after winning the Australian Open over Novak Djokovic, who had never lost in his 10 previous finals at the Aussie Open. And so the man right now is Alcaraz. He is the guy in men's tennis. And if you get a chance to watch him, he's really great.
Yeah, he'll be that guy for years. And, you know, there were some cryptic words said by Djokovic in the post game, kind of leading to is he going to retire after this season? And you almost wonder how much truth there is to that, because he is 38 years old. You look at Alcaraz, who is 22? And that's just the difference in the speed of the game, right? You look at yourself, 18 years different. Is that 18? Yeah, carry the two. 18 years different, 16 years difference. That's better math. 16-year gap there, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't move as well as the guy across from me. And so I might feel like I need to retire because I'm not at the top of my game anymore. Although you made it to the final, you could also go for years and years.
Right, but you think of all the great players over the years, when you go all the way back to Connors and McEnroe and Sampras and Borg and Agassi, and then move on to obviously Djokovic and Roger Federer and that gang. To be the youngest ever to win a career Grand Slam, pretty big deal.
Yeah, he's special. He's a special kid.
All right, those are our highlights of the weekend. Coming up in the list, as you saw, we had some cool, unusual venue games this weekend. We'll give you our favorites of all time next in The Fight. It's time for the list, and in the last segment we mentioned that Penn State hockey played Michigan State outdoors over the weekend, and the Lightning hosted an outdoor game in Tampa against Boston. Well, today's list, the coolest games played in a non-traditional venue in any sport, and I'm going to start with 1999. After 40 years without a major league team playing baseball in Cuba, the Baltimore Orioles visited to play the Cuban national team. Cuban President Fidel Castro, who actually participated in a tryout with the Washington Senators before becoming a dictator. It's quite a jump from tryout for major leagues to dictator. He greeted both teams in a baseball-crazed country. Over 50,000 fans crammed the stands at Havana's Latino Americano Stadium, and this game opened the door further for players like Randy Arozarena and Yoenis Cespedes, Aledmus Diaz, and Jorge Soler to come play in the major leagues. This was a big deal, and the Orioles played against the Cuban national team, beat them by a score of 3-2.
All right, so we can thank the Orioles for helping the Cardinals out over the years, right?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know if you helped out the Rays a little bit.
Yeah, maybe the Rays. Well, the Cardinals didn't help themselves out after the Orioles helped them out. No, that's really cool. I think it is funny, the connection that you just made there with Fidel Castro. Had no idea that he had a tryout with the Senators at one point. That's pretty incredible. But yeah, just going to Cuba to play the national team and you're a Major League Baseball team, you just don't see that.
No.
You just never see that anymore.
Pretty great.
Okay, my number 3. The 2011 Carrier Classic showed the world just how far outside the box college basketball could go. 2 Blue Bloods, North Carolina and Michigan State, tipped off on Veterans Day aboard the USS Carl Vinson in front of 8,100 fans, including service members and even President Obama and his family. So this was played on a custom-built court with temporary seating on the flight deck. The game paused at sunset for the Navy's retiring of the colors. It created a moment that blended sport and patriotism in no way, and in no arena could ever do something like that. The teams wore camouflage uniforms. You can't really see it, right? Didn't that one go over everybody's head at home? Okay. The Pacific Ocean served as the backdrop, and it all directly led to what is now known as really the Armed Forces Classic, which it features games where teams travel to other military bases and unique venues from around the world, from Germany to Korea to Hawaii, even another aircraft carrier in 2022 when Drew Timme and Gonzaga held Michigan State off by 1 point. I think this series is one of the coolest traditions in college basketball.
And you mentioned at the top, thinking outside the box, putting a basketball court and stands on an aircraft carrier and doing it to serve our military. It doesn't get any better than that. And I'm sure that all of those servicemen and women had a great time, but that had to be an unforgettable experience for those college players, don't you think?
Oh,
and
yeah.
at that time, remember, college players hadn't played in the NBA before, so it had to be really cool for those guys to be on an aircraft carrier and, as you say, have the ocean as a backdrop for your basketball game and not be slipping all over the court, and they didn't. That's pretty cool.
Well, and that's the novelty of that too, right? Because even as a kid, if you had the chance to go play at Busch Stadium, like that's super cool. Even if you had a chance to go play at a college stadium, that was really cool. And so watching college basketball players be able to do something for the first time, and you mentioned how slippery the floor could get. They canceled the game halfway through the year later, and then they canceled it altogether the next season because they're like, we can't play with the floor as slick as it is. So the fact that they got through one game was pretty impressive.
All right, my number 2. One of the cool things about college football is when they go to an off-campus venue. It happens a lot, especially with opening games. We had one last year in Ireland. You always have one in Jerry's Dome and all over the United States of America. And that was the case here when Mizzou and Illinois played at the Dome in their opener for 6 years. The Rams were still here, and the Dome was great for a game like this. Half the stadium was orange and blue. The other half of the stadium was black and gold. And the programs are so similar that competitive games were almost inevitable, and they were. They played here in 02 and 03, and again from 07 through 2010. And in this 07 game, Jeremy Maclin arrived on the scene with a touchdown catch and a punt return touchdown, and this Pig Brown 100-yard fumble return for a touchdown gave Mizzou the win 40-34. Pig Brown was a really good player. The defense, even though they allowed the 34 points for Mizzou, was really good. Always cool to see those two off campus. Hopefully, when this series resumes in 2027, and right now the site is TBA, hopefully they'll play here in St. Louis, either at the Dome or at Busch Stadium. But I love seeing college teams playing in a scenario where half the crowd is for one team, half the crowd is for the other team.
I do too, and I'm with you. I hope they go back to the Dome for just the sake of the football, right? There's already a nice turf there that is laid for the Battlehawks. Might as well play the game there, but it feels like a state championship game when you have one side of the entire venue with one color, the other side, cheering on that other team, and that's just what's so cool about sporting events is you don't have to do it at your traditional spot. You can play it anywhere and still bring out so many people to support.
And CVC, all you need to do is get a case of like all surface cleaner and a bunch of rags and clean off the concession stands, make sure those are good to go, make sure that all the stuff in the concession stand works so that you can heat up hot dogs and nachos and things like that. Make sure that the headphones work for the coaches on the sidelines. All those little things that happen when you're having an event at a football game, make sure those are all good, and then maybe Mizzou will have a little bit more interest in participating.
And make sure you're fully stocked on RC Cola.
Oh, yeah.
That is priority number one. And Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Right. But the RC, when that was with the Rams and you couldn't get it anywhere else, you could buy it at the store, but no parent ever bought RC Cola. You bought it every single Rams game, though.
Yep.
So make sure the RC Cola is flowing.
RC Cola is really good.
It actually is. And they have a zero sugar RC Cola.
Oh, do they?
And you really like that one. Okay, back in 2023, Randy, there was no RC Cola at this venue. Nebraska volleyball proved that its fan base is truly unmatched when the Cornhuskers sold out their own football field at Memorial Stadium, which quickly became known as Volleyball Day in Nebraska. A staggering crowd of 92,003 people packed the stadium, setting the record for the most attended women's volleyball match ever and showcasing a level of support no other program in the country could realistically replicate. I remember being down on the field and looking around thinking, there's no way I'm not at a football game. There's just too many people here. And it was the ultimate example of how deeply volleyball is woven into the culture of the state. Nobody supports like Nebraska, and that night proved that the Huskers are in a class of their own when it comes to showing out for women's sports.
How loud was it down on the field?
It was incredibly loud. It was so awesome for those women to be able to, experience what a game day feels like for every football player. They did the tunnel walk, and there was just as many people in the tunnel walk, behind the velvet ropes, that there are when the football team walks out. And then they got the entire experience, like the same game day experience like the football guys get when they get onto the field. The fans were up on their feet. This actually probably was a sellout. Football up there in Nebraska, and I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. They say they have this sellout streak going on. they don't sell out every seat. They have every ticket sold, but there isn't every seat taken. This volleyball match had every seat taken, which was really cool.
That's pretty cool. And they have such a great history. There probably isn't a place with a singular sport because, for example, Texas and Tennessee support women's basketball. I wonder if there's a place in the country where they are uniquely supportive of one sport that really nobody else in the country can match.
I don't know. I can't think of one right now, especially at that level, right? Because you could say like, oh yeah, this hockey team can pull 10,000 people, and that's great. But we're talking 9 times that number, and Nebraska was able to pull that off, and it was a huge event. It was a big party. Kudos to them.
Absolutely. My number one, Andrew, is because of the pandemic. Sports had to get creative without fans in 2020 and 2021. And New Year's Day of 2021, the annual NHL Winter Classic played in Tahoe. And as you can see, it was beautiful. The Avalanche and the Golden Knights played one game, then Boston and Philly played. It's always spectacular when the American Century Golf Classic is played during the summer in Tahoe. Well, this winter event was a creative masterpiece for the NHL. It couldn't have been more scenic, and this is my number one alternate site sporting event. It really was an unbelievable day and night, and they had some problems when the sun went down, but it really was a spectacular scene, and obviously with no fans, the teams had to create their own energy, and they did.
All I have to say is, wow. This arena, the placement of this arena, it reminds me of when I was in high school and I would spend way too much time looking up the coolest sporting venues. Like you'd look at Appalachian State's baseball field, right? Or you'd go out to California, you'd see a stadium on the ocean, and you're like, man, I would love to play there someday. That venue, I wish would come back every year.
I do too.
Because just the scenery, you talk about not being able to attend something like this as a fan. Think about if fans could go to Lake Tahoe and see that. It's just an incredible spot.
Yep.
Okay, my number one. I also think this is that, hey, let's plan a trip around this game. MLB Field of Dreams game instantly became one of my favorite sporting events because Field of Dreams is my all-time favorite baseball movie. And the idea of players walking out of the corn in Dyersville, Iowa to play a regular season game captured everything nostalgic about what baseball really is. So year one was a struggle. You mentioned how the pandemic affected the Winter Classic game there. COVID actually postponed this one too. But it almost felt even more personal knowing the Cardinals were supposed to play in that inaugural game as replacements to the Yankees. Then the virus swept through the clubhouse, infected a ton. We didn't get the game until 2021. But when it finally happened, the original teams got the nod. So White Sox and Yankees, then Cubs and Reds in 2022. No one can tell me that the cinematic scenery that you just saw right there, the throwback uniforms, and the overall quote dropping wasn't just perfect. It was emotional. It had true connection to fans who love the movie and love baseball, and it just felt like heaven. Not just Iowa. People did come, Ray, and a lot of players had a catch that day. I'm so ready for its return in August.
But what happens if you fall off the bleachers because you choke on a hot dog?
Well, the good news is Moonlight Graham will step off the field, and he actually is a doctor in another life, and he will find a way for you to breathe again.
Oh, that's good to hear. Okay, I like that. That's a great call. That's always a fun one to watch on TV. Actually, we were planning on going to that when the Cardinals were going to be in it before the pandemic, and that got nixed, and hopefully the Cardinals will get the opportunity to play in Dyersville at some point.
That'd be awesome.
All right, that is the list. Next up, we've got some risky business. We're going to build a parlay next in the fight. Pretty much everyone has had to deal with a cancer diagnosis for a family member or a friend, and at St. Luke's, we understand the feelings and emotions that come with a cancer diagnosis and want to help you return to a fulfilling and high-functioning quality of life. St. Luke's Center for Cancer Care is dedicated to providing prompt, personal, and comprehensive care at every stage, from screening and diagnosis to treatment and survivorship. Our cancer treatment and services include surgery, medical and radiation oncology, cancer rehabilitation, wound healing and hyperbaric medicine, palliative care, and clinical trials and research. St. Luke's Center for Cancer Care is convenient to the entire metro area, and the team treats you as they'd treat family. See the St. Luke's difference for yourself and find out how the Center for Cancer Care will support you at every step of your journey. Call 314-205-6737 today for world-class compassionate treatment or visit online at stlukes-stl.com. All right, it is time for Risky Business, and we are going to build a little parlay here. And I'm going to go to the Blues game in Nashville. And with a goal in 2 straight games, Jimmy Snuggerud is hot. And he's going to score another one. 3 straight games tonight. He's plus 330 to do so. Snuggy, take care of Randy tonight, okay? Plus 330, he's going to score.
I love that. He also had that maintenance day before last game. So maybe let's give him another maintenance day, and then he'll score, and then another maintenance day and score, right? Yeah, all of it. All right, let's go over to the hardwood, Randy. 2 big games tonight, Syracuse, North Carolina, and the bigger one of the 2. It is Texas Tech and Kansas.
Ooh.
So Texas Tech, 4.5-point favorite at home. Here is why I'm taking Texas Tech. Darren Peterson is supposed to be back for Kansas. One of the best scorers in all of college basketball. This game opened at 2.5. So if the best player for Kansas is supposed to be back, and the points went up 2 in favor of Texas Tech, leads me to believe that Peterson might not play very much, or he's not going to play at all.
Okay.
So I might even play this number up to 5, but I'll take the 4.5 right now because I think that is a good value play. And when you come over here and we see our total parlay, 720, you make $720 on a $100 play.
That's what we need to do. And how do we do? Brooks Koepka did not finish in the top 10, but Ryan Gerard did finish in the top 20. So you had a good weekend.
Yeah, no,
I
Gerard playing well, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Just keep betting him until he doesn't finish in the top 20.
Koepka was only, 46 away?
Yeah,
spots.
At least he got past the cut line, right? Because it was close there for a while.
Yeah, right. He had to have an eagle on 17. Coming up, we have Take It or Leave It plus story time with Uncle Randy here in the fight. All right, it's time now for Take It or Leave It. And Andrew, this quote from Complex Magazine on Twitter. Sydney Sweeney opens up about what she looks for in a partner. Athletic and outgoing and funny. I'm a sporty girl, so someone needs to be able to climb a mountain with me, go skydiving with me, and someone who loves their family. I love myself a man. To which Rams receiver Puka Nacua quote tweeted, love skydiving. So take it or leave it. Getting Sydney Sweeney would be Puka's greatest catch ever.
First off, very clever. Very clever on your part. Second off, Puka Nacua, notice what she said there. Sporty, loves their family.
Yep.
Polynesian people love their families. And loves to be in the mountains. Where's Puka Nacua from?
BYU.
Yeah, well, that's where he went to BYU, but he's got Hawaiian roots, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure Sydney Sweeney would like to travel there. You seem like an ideal candidate. I'm going to leave it, though, Randy.
Ooh.
Did you see the catch he made this year? The one-handed catch with the right hand. Oh, look, here it is right here. Yeah, this is Puka Nacua's greatest catch ever.
Yeah, well, Sydney Sweeney, that happens once.
What about hot take? Sydney Sweeney overrated?
Yes. Yeah, take it.
Oh, you're taking that too?
I'm taking it.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a little controversial here.
No, I'm with you 100%.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it right there. All right. I'm moving to mine, Randy. Okay. So Cardinal Nation is split on the idea of trading Brendan Donovan. Some say there's no guarantee offers will be the same at the same level next time around, and that it feels like a missed opportunity not to deal him, while others say they don't have to trade him and to keep a really good player over sending him for something less than. Take it or leave it. It would be a win for the Cardinals this offseason if they don't move Donovan.
I'm going to take that for several reasons. Number one, it gives you a better opportunity to keep him with an extension. And the other part is, and I thought about this a lot, because the Cardinals didn't plan on being able to move Wilson Contreras this offseason. And Lars Nootbaar had heel surgery on both heels after the season. If Brendan Donovan isn't on your team and Lars Nootbaar isn't available on opening day, who's your opening day left fielder?
Who are you rushing? Who are you rushing up? That's really what it becomes.
Nathan Church, your opening day left fielder?
Or that. Yeah, you're either taking somebody that you really weren't very excited about, or you're rushing up one of your prospects.
Yeah, so what do you got?
I'm going to take it. I am absolutely going to take that one too, because I also think, I don't know if it's a win or a loss if they move on from Donovan. You're going to get something back in return that's going to be healthy, or you're going to get a really good player.
All right, from director Tyler, take it or leave it. Justin Rose, who won yesterday at Torrey Pines, wins the FedEx Cup and is the #1 golfer in the world at the end of the season. Scotty Scheffler's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, Tyler. Good thought, though.
I do like it, though. All right, time now for story time with Uncle Randy. Andrew's going to spin the wheel for a decade from my sports fandom, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And then we'll spin for a sport, too. We're going to be in the 2010s. Okay, so this will be fun. and then I'll come up with a story for you. It'll be fun. Here we go. 2010s hockey, huh? Okay, we've been doing this lately. Okay, so let's do some 2010s hockey, and let's move back. Let's move back to 2014, I believe it was, as the Blues, for the second year in a row, get eliminated from the playoffs. I think in 2013 it was the Kings. No, 2013 Blackhawks. 2013 Blackhawks, 2014 Kings. And Doug Armstrong, in his postseason press conference, is clearly frustrated. And he says to the assembled media, he's talking about how the Blues just don't have that killer instinct. And one of the great quotes of all time, and it's all over the internet, you got to take the knife, jam it in their eye, through their brain, and kill them. Because the Blues just didn't have that killer instinct in the playoffs. They had the opportunity on multiple occasions, right? They get ahead 2-0 in the playoffs, and they don't come away with a win. The other team beats them 4 out of 5 on 2 different occasions, which was really frustrating. And then, obviously, a few years later, and the Blues didn't do it against San Jose either. They lose in 6 in the conference finals in 2016. Then they wind up going to the Stanley Cup and taking the knife and jamming it through their eye into their brain and killing them against the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, that was awesome. What a quote right there.
One of the
nailed those dates. Because as I was thinking back, I'm like, okay, the Giants were the alternate years of the Blackhawks, so you nailed the dates right on the head. But for somebody to come out and just say that, right? You're going to kill him, right, with the knife, right? That's not something you're used to hearing from somebody.
No, and Army told me one time on the radio that his wife has regrets about that statement. But it's really one of the great, and here, let's hear from Doug Armstrong. Here's great.
When you have a team down 2-0, you need to take the knife and jam it through their eye into their brain and kill them. We don't do that.
I love Army, and I'm so sad that he's not going to be our POHO anymore. I know, he's not going to be our GM. He's still going to be our POHO, but we just aren't going to hear from him anymore because that stuff is just awesome.
Yeah, do you think Steiner's picking up on those things?
I hope so.
Right? Like adding a little personality into those pressers, because Army's such a serious guy, right? Even when he's being funny, he's dead serious.
Yeah.
And I need moments like that out of Steiner.
Yep. And you know what? I would love for this team now in 25-26 to take on that attitude where, okay, you go kill somebody, right?
Yeah, go out there. If 2 goalies can fight in the outdoor game yesterday, you can go out there and level some people. And winning teams have those guys. Winning teams have that. We talked about with Brent Seabrook just last week.
Right. You don't have to ask Benner twice to fight.
No. Yeah, let's do that more.
He'll go for it.
Yeah, we need him to be in the game, though, to fight.
All right, that's story time with Uncle Randy. Now it's time for this date in sports history. And it was on this date in 1876 that baseball's National League formed at the Grand Central Hotel in New York City. Teams in Boston, that was the Braves, Chicago, the Cubs, Cincinnati, the Redlegs, Hartford, Louisville, New York, that was the Giants, Philadelphia, and St. Louis. And we wound up with a team that has been well represented in all-star games over the years. There used to be a ton of pride in the National League and the American League when you went to the all-star game. Players really wanted to win it. And the leagues were really separate for a long time, even until like the last 30 years. There was an American League president and a National League president, and we didn't have interleague play. The World Series was the only time, aside from spring training, that American League and National League teams saw each other. So there was a real hatred between the National League and the American League, and it was great.
Can you go back and read those teams again, the cities?
Yeah, Boston, Braves, Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Reds, Hartford and Louisville, and then New York was the Giants, Philadelphia Phillies, and St. Louis, the Cardinals.
Hartford and Louisville.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure where those teams landed.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now in my head. But yeah, that's pretty funny how Hartford had a hockey team, they had a baseball team, and now they have nothing.
And one time, the New England Patriots were going to move to Hartford.
Really?
And that was turned down, and they wound up with their stadium in Foxborough.
I'm sure those fans up there prefer that over Hartford.
Yeah, but at least they have ESPN in Bristol.
Yeah,
so
that's
they
true
got some
too.
sports,
Yeah, at least you have the home, the worldwide leader in sports.
Yeah. Hey, we've got some great sports coming up before the Winter Olympics. Obviously, as we mentioned, the Blues tonight at Nashville, and then they play at Dallas Dallas on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, you've got St. Louis University at Davidson. So we've got some fun local games coming up, but man, things are going to slow down without the Blues for the 2.5 weeks of the Olympic break.
Yeah, but that'll be fun watching the Olympics. You know, that it's always good to get that at all hours of the day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I'm up at 3 in the morning with a child, I'm going to be watching bobsledding.
Well, and I am going to stay up on Sunday, and we get in early on Monday morning, but I'm going to stay up just to watch Mike Tirico do the Super Bowl and then host the Olympics on Sunday night.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. That's really cool. What a transition that will be.
He's great. I didn't realize he did hockey. I forgot. For that Tahoe doubleheader,
That was him?
He did hockey play-by-play.
He's special.
He's a great broadcaster. Hey, tell your friends about us. The Fight is on at 5 and 10 p.m. and then replayed at 7 in the morning. You can leave comments via email at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. Matrixmidwest.com is also where you can sign up to participate in The Fight every Wednesday. We record that every Tuesday at about noon on Zoom, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. And don't forget this. If you don't have time to watch us, just download the KMOV app or the Matrix Midwest app, and you can listen on demand in your car on the way to work or as you drive around.
And if you can't find us anywhere,
shame on you.
Yeah, you should be able to find us everywhere.
Yeah.
Because we are everywhere at this point in time.
Yeah, having a lot of fun and a lot of cool things on the way. Stick around and stay tuned. A lot of cool things are happening here at Matrix Midwest. Great job as always,
Hey,
sir.
great job by you.
That is the one, the only Andrew Rogers. Tyler Klaus has been our director, as he is every day, and does an unbelievable job for everybody involved with the show. We thank you for being with us. Have a magnificent Monday, and we'll see you next time here in The Fight.